Ever feel like your dog just like knows when you're stressed,
Mm.
like they can smell it or something?
Yeah.
Well, get this. What if their anxiety is like a reflection of our own?
Whoa.
We're diving deep into a study today that has me thinking about that human-animal bond in a whole new way.
Yeah, it's definitely thought-provoking. So we're looking at this pilot study about using a legal LSD alternative
Oh, wow.
called 1cp-LSD
Okay.
to treat anxiety in dogs. And the results are raising some very interesting questions about how connected we really are to our furry friends.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. This study is published in Veterinary Research Communications,
Yeah.
focuses on dogs who, struggle with anxiety, which turns out a lot of them do.
It's surprisingly common. A lot of people don't realize. Yeah, the study mentions that almost 1 in 5 dogs experience anxiety,
Wow.
which is a lot. Yeah. And, we think of our dogs like they're.
Yeah, they're happy all the time.
Mhm.
Bundles of joy. But the reality is many of them are dealing with, like, some serious stuff.
Yeah, totally.
And that can manifest in all sorts of behaviors that are really difficult for both the dog and the owner.
Exactly. And then you get into, how do you treat that?
Right.
And sometimes the medications don't work or they have side effects.
Exactly.
And so researchers are looking for new solutions,
Mm.
which brings us to this study and its focus on 1cp-LSD. So walk us through it. What did they actually do in this study?
So they worked with a 13-year-old dog
Okay.
named Lola.
Okay.
And Lola had severe separation anxiety.
Oh, no.
So every time her owner would leave, she would get really stressed out,
Yeah.
whining, barking, even being destructive.
Oh, wow.
And so they gave Lola a single, very small dose of 1cp-LSD,
Microdose.
a microdose, yeah,
Okay.
like what some people use for their own anxiety.
Interesting.
Yeah, but here's where
Yeah.
that's interesting. Lola's dose was actually a little bit higher than a typical human microdose.
But she didn't seem to have any full-blown psychedelic experience.
Okay.
They were really watching for that. But what they did observe was incredible.
What?
Her anxiety just melted away.
Wait, seriously,
Yeah,
just from that one dose?
just from that one dose. It was amazing. After about 2 hours, Lola's anxious behaviors decreased dramatically.
Wow.
She just stopped panicking when her owner left. She wasn't following her around constantly, and she even stayed relaxed during her owner's mealtime, which usually,
Well, that's a tough one.
would set her off.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like flipping a switch.
Right.
But before everybody runs out and tries to get,
Yeah.
this for their dog, we got to ask, i- is this like really a miracle cure?
Hold your horses.
Okay.
It's important to remember that this was a single case study.
Right, right.
So it's way too early to draw any conclusions from it.
Of course, of course.
But the findings are definitely interesting, and they show that we need to do more research in this area.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. This could be huge for our furry friends.
Absolutely. This could change how we think about treating behavioral issues in animals completely.
Totally.
But even more fascinating is what this tells us about the connection between a dog and their owner.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that connection. What do you mean?
The researchers didn't just look at Lola's anxiety, they also looked at her owner's attachment style.
Okay.
And it turns out that Lola's owner showed what's called a fearful avoidant attachment style.
Okay, so what does that mean?
It basically means that the owner, they might be a little uncomfortable with closeness, emotional expression, and this can show up in how they interact with their dog, maybe without even realizing it.
So maybe, are you saying that Lola's anxiety wasn't like all her?
Right.
Maybe she was picking up on her owner's anxieties too.
Exactly. And this isn't just some crazy theory. There's actually a growing body of research looking at how important the human-animal bond is, especially when it comes to anxiety and stress.
It's like they could read our minds or something.
It really is
At
amazing.
least our moods,
Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
This study just, it really highlights how connected we are to our pets
Yeah.
emotionally,
Absolutely.
But, getting back to Lola and the actual study,
Okay.
one thing that I thought was really interesting was the timeline of her response to the 1cp-LSD.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that it took like about 2 hours for her anxiety to really decrease.
Right.
What's up with that?
Well, that actually makes a lot of sense because that's how 1cp-LSD tends to work in humans, too.
Okay.
It's not like this instant,
Yeah.
Anxiety cure. It's
Right.
like a gradual
Right.
onset of effects.
Okay.
And the researchers were really,
Yeah.
on top of things. They were really paying attention to how Lola was reacting to things as the drug was taking effect.
Like what kind of things? Give me an example.
So, for example, they noted that she remained calm even when there was music playing,
Okay.
which is important because, sometimes
Yeah.
auditory perception can be altered
Right.
with these types of substances. And so they were really looking for any signs that she was,
Right, of course.
having a bad reaction.
Yeah, so responsible science,
Exactly.
making
Yeah.
sure it's safe.
Exactly.
Okay, so it sounds like they were really thorough.
They were.
But I'm curious, did it last? Like, did Lola's anxiety ever come back?
Right, right. That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Totally.
And unfortunately, at least based on this one single dose,
Yeah.
it seems like the effects were temporary.
Okay.
The study mentioned that her anxiety levels gradually returned to normal after about 4 or 5 hours.
Okay, so not a permanent cure-all.
Right.
More like a
Yeah.
temporary relief.
Exactly.
Okay, but this is just, like, the first step, right?
Right.
I mean, if microdosing is the key here, then we need to be looking at,
Right.
what are the effects of giving repeated small doses over a long period?
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Isn't that kind of how microdosing is used in humans a lot of times?
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
And the researchers actually mentioned that as that's the next step, right?
Yeah.
To really understand what the potential of 1cp-LSD is.
Yeah.
We need to move beyond these single dose studies and we really need to look at
Yeah.
what are the long-term effects of repeated microdosing.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And of course, like, we have to talk about safety and side effects.
Of
Twice. Like, did this study say anything about that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can't just be,
Yeah. Yes.
giving dog substances without really understanding
Right, of course.
the risks. And
Yeah.
so the study really emphasized the need for a lot more research on potential side effects, long-term consequences, all of that.
Yeah. Of course, safety first.
Exactly.
Speaking of safety, they did say that the dose that Lola got was a little bit higher than a typical human microdose.
Right.
Do you know why they did that?
It's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, this was just a pilot study.
Okay.
So they were really just trying to establish a baseline. Like how do dogs even react to this,
Right, so start with a dose where you might see something.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Dip your toe in the water before you jump in the deep end.
Right. Okay.
And plus, remember, this is 1cp-LSD we're talking about.
Right.
Which is that legal LSD analog.
Okay, yeah.
It's not actual LSD.
Right.
And while they're similar,
Yeah.
there could be differences in how they affect a dog's brain.
It's like comparing a recipe to like a
Right.
slightly different version of that recipe.
Right, exactly.
It might look similar,
Yeah.
but the taste is going to be different.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's really interesting.
So those are all things that researchers need to keep in mind when they're trying to figure out,
Yeah.
the right dose
Yeah.
for these future studies.
Wow, so much we still don't know.
So much.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really exciting.
This research could go way beyond anxiety in dogs, though, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Like, this is huge.
This could change how we think about treating anxiety and behavioral issues in all sorts of animals, not just dogs.
Right, we could be talking about helping so many animals who are suffering, and we don't even really know,
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's really
It's pretty remarkable.
remarkable. And,
Yeah.
and going back to what you're saying about Lola's anxiety potentially being related to her owner's anxiety,
Right.
this could lead to a whole new understanding of like that
Yeah.
bond between humans and animals, right?
Absolutely.
And maybe even like leading to better treatment and stuff.
Exactly. Exactly. It's
Wow.
not just about, medicating the animal.
Yeah.
It's also about how can we foster a healthy relationship
Right, exactly.
between a pet and their human.
It's like a more holistic approach.
Exactly. Yeah, a more holistic approach.
Wow, this deep dive has been like a real journey.
It has.
We started out talking about LSD for dog anxiety,
Right.
and now we're talking about like transforming veterinary medicine.
I know.
It's amazing.
It's really incredible.
And like
Yeah.
changing how we like fundamentally see animals, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's really cool.
It really is. It's exciting, and like all scientific exploration,
Yeah.
it can take you down these really unexpected paths,
Totally.
and it makes us challenge what we thought we knew.
Speaking of unexpected paths, this study also mentioned something that I found really, really interesting.
Okay.
Indigenous communities using psychedelics to make their hunting dogs better hunters. Sounds like something straight out of an adventure novel or something.
Shamans, secret herbs, dogs with superpowers.
Yeah. Did I miss anything?
No, you pretty much got it. Yeah, so the study mentions how certain indigenous cultures, particularly in South America, have used natural psychedelics, often from plants,
Hmm.
to
Oh,
help their hunting dogs, basically.
wow. So is there any science behind this? Or is it just,
It's not as crazy as it sounds, actually.
Oh.
So we know that certain psychedelics, like the ones you find in some mushrooms, they can really heighten your senses.
Right.
And so, it's very possible that those substances could be amplifying a dog's sense of smell or hearing, which would, obviously make them a better hunter.
Okay, that's so cool. So we
Yeah.
could actually learn something from these, like, you know,
Yeah.
ancient traditions about
Sure.
how to use these substances.
Yeah, I think it just shows that,
Yeah.
modern science doesn't have all the answers.
Okay.
Indigenous cultures have this, like, deep understanding of the natural world.
And they have for centuries. So I think we can learn a lot from them.
It's a good reminder to, like, stay humble.
Right. Exactly.
We think we know so much, but
Yeah.
maybe we don't.
It really makes you wonder what else is out there. What else can we learn about,
Yeah.
consciousness, human and animal
Right.
from psychedelics?
It's crazy.
It's really fascinating.
So, okay, we've talked about a lot today.
We have.
What's the key takeaway here? What do we want people to, like?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is that, we're really just at the beginning here.
Yeah.
This is a brand new field.
Right.
And, this one study with Lola,
Yep.
it's opened up all these questions
That's-
about animal consciousness, about the bond we have with animals, and really about just the potential of psychedelics in general.
Yeah, like to treat all sorts of things. It's really,
Read all sorts of things. Yeah, it's really exciting.
it feels very like
It is exciting.
we're on the edge of something big.
Yeah, it's like a paradigm shift.
Totally.
Leo.
Yeah, totally. And like all paradigm shifts, we have to be,
Yeah.
open-minded and
Open-minded, cautious.
cautious. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay, well said.
Thanks.
So, on that note, we'll leave you with this.
Okay.
If we can learn to use these substances safely and responsibly
Yeah.
to help animals, what does that say about us and our place in the world,
That's a great question.
Right.
It really is.
Something to think about.
A lot to think about.
That's a wrap on another deep dive.
It is.
Until next time,
See you later.
stay curious.